Welcome to MSP Unplugged, episode number 33, Common IT Issues. I'm your host, Jeff Halash. This is our live show where we discuss the different ways to run your IT business, whether it's managed services, consulting, break fix, or anything in between. Let me introduce the co-hosts. We have Paco Lebron from ProdigyTeks. Paco, how you doing?
Better than good, better than most. How's everyone?
Good, man. Good to have you. Glad you're able to join us. And we have Ervis Micukaj. Yes, here. I told you I was going to mess it up. Ervis from Jet IT Services. Ervis, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. All the way from
Shanghai, China.
Shanghai, China. 12 hours difference. So it's evening time here for us, and it's morning time for him. And so that's got to be interesting. Now, let me ask you a question. I didn't ask you this earlier. Are you normally up at this hour?
No.
An honest person. I love it. All right. That's cool. So glad to hear that you're able to get up and be with us this morning. So that's it's good to have you.
I think it's just super cool to have a listener from China on the podcast because I don't believe we've had anyone that's a listener from China on the show yet. So if I recall correctly.
No, not that I know of. So yeah, it's usually everybody in the US, and this is really cool. So all right. So yeah, I guess we've had some from Australia and stuff like that, but never China.
Yeah, across the pond in the UK, etc.
Yeah.
So
all right. Sounds good. So let's go ahead and start off with our tips or stories. And Paco, go ahead and shoot off.
I think for me, my tip will be just kind of make sure there's transparency and communication across your teams and clients. I think we had a situation where there was a lot going on in the middle of the week. And as everyone knows, I have a few employees. So I'm now starting to get into this mode of I have to make sure everyone knows what's going on versus I'm kind of doing everything on myself. So it's been a very big learning curve. So we've been doing a lot of catch-up meetings. And what I've come to find out that they've become more valuable because there was a client issue that was occurring that I just couldn't wrap my head around. And it got to the point where I was talking to my remote tech and he said, well, I actually just experienced the same thing at my old job. Let me go ahead and log in and see what's going on. And sure enough, he was able to, poke around, figure out what was going on. So just transparency, collaboration is key. And especially having like catch-up meetings like that, because had I not kind of caught up with everyone on the team on what was going on, I would have never had that solution a lot sooner rather than later to resolve that. And long story short, it was a battery in a UPS that plagued me. So, which was weird. But anyway, that was kind of the thing we were battling this week. A network kept going down. And it just gives me that confidence of when I do step away, that my team is able to take care of what needs to be done.
That's a good tip and something good to follow there. All right, Ervis, what kind of a tip or story do you have for us this week?
Actually, the transparency is something that resonates and hits hard here. Because the way I see it here, at least from the across the Pacific, is that a lot of customers actually don't know what's happening at their site. I've had I'm doing a bid now on a company. It's a gas and oil company based out of Italy, and they have an office here in China. I did a bid a few years ago. The funny thing is that when I did the bid, I was too transparent with them. And I told them at the very beginning when they said, we need to do this and this and this and da. And I said to them, maybe I was too naive, but I told them, look, based on what I know and what I see from your computers and from your network, I think you need, 12 hours per month support. And they said, no. Our current vendor, they say they need da, and we need a lot of hours. And I was like, all right, here's my proposal. I think you need only 12 hours. And I was taken away from the bid process. Sometime after, I got in, I didn't sign the contract. What happened is that I talked to their GM after some time at a dinner, and then he said, Ervis, fun fact, my Italian IT team went with the amount of time you proposed, but because you had been already discarded from the process, they had to sign with the other vendor. And I was like, aha. So
wow.
it's a bit of a moral victory. I mean, not so much financial victory, but at the end of the day, I prefer to lose a customer where some of the stakeholders think I don't know my job and they know more than what I do. But make sure I'm always saying the truth, because the truth is going to, if I lie, the lie is going to bite me back. So now I'm bidding again for this company.
Well, you know, and that pays a lot in dividends down the road, right? If you do the right thing today, down the road, good things will happen. That's just the way of the world. It's the way it works. You can call it karma, you know, laws of sowing and reaping, whatever you want to call it. Doesn't really matter. It just works. Can't explain it. It just does. So, yeah, I'm always for doing the right thing, and it will come back in way more than what you could have made in a short period of time had you just said, "Yeah, we'll do it for, you know, X amount of whatever hours that your other company was doing it," and kind of shortchanging them that way. You definitely did the right thing. So that's cool.
Yeah, and that's a big takeaway too, is the fact that he's, Ervis, you said you're going to bid again. And I think that's where a lot of us who try to go for a contract and don't have the, once the no has been given, that prospect kind of just goes to the wayside and is never followed up with. And, we make an effort where every year we kind of just check in and say, hey, how's everything going? Is everything going well? Because you never know, there may be that one chance or that one possibility, because you follow up every year. Hey, you know what? We are going through some growing pains, or, hey, yeah, we are going through some issues. Let's talk again and see if this makes sense, right? So, I mean, that's a big piece for everyone to understand, that for everyone, and especially now, especially with everything kind of going on, and if there was an IT company that they had that kind of didn't do justice by them, by you reaching out, they'll understand, he kind of was cool. He was kind of okay. Their system was working. He had somewhat of a decent offering. Maybe we should re-engage conversations, because what we have now just is not sitting with us right. So it's something to take away for those that are looking to, as far as another lead source or to follow up. It's always nice to follow up with those that had said no to you before.
So because one time I made a mistake on a prospect, and that reminded me to very much stick to the transparency, because I lost the prospect, and that was completely my fault. So now I try to avoid, because the time we did a project with an American company, and I don't do cabling. So I brought in a cabling person to do the certain parts of the project, and I told the customer, look, cabling, I will have to find someone else. And he was like totally cool with it. And I brought the person, they did the activity, but there was some misunderstanding between the local team, that the local team said, oh, we need to do this. And the IT team, the IT guy from the US, he's like, I need you to do this. So we did the work. We did because they wanted to do like a Wi-Fi audit and to give them some recommendation for a factory, connect two sites and an office. And we did the whole Wi-Fi audit. The guy did all the cabling audit. We give the proposal. It was a huge proposal for a small company. And then the guy came back to me, he's like, what's happening here? And I was like, well, when I had the meeting with you, you said you needed this thing. But then when I went on site, we asked the person, the local person, we said, we need to do these parts. And he's like, no. I have talked to the boss. And I was like, are you sure? Yeah, I have talked. Trust me. And I was like, my mistake was, can I have an email that says there is the change of a scope, of the IT scope? And it's like, no. I am here in charge of the office. It was like a small city outside of Shanghai, just 8 million people. And then we did the work, and the IT person from the US was like, something is wrong here. It seems that the communication is not very good. And I was like, look, your local person said this. And he's like, yeah, but you're talking to me, so you need to follow my guidance. And since then, I try to make very clear what's the business scope, who's doing what, who's in charge of what, because that thing still stinks.
Yeah, that's kind of rough. But these are life lessons that we learn as we move forward. I just had a customer that had going along the same lines that reached out to me and basically said that they have a 7-year-old, and I believe it's a desktop computer, and it says that the the rear fan is not running or something like that, or it might be a CPU fan. One of the fans is not running, so the system keeps shutting down. And then they also proceeded to tell me that the computer was 7 years old and it was starting to slow down over the last couple months. So I get on the phone with this particular customer, and brand new customer. I've never met him before. And they basically were telling me the story and all the things with the computer. And I said, listen, I said, here's my recommendation. Your computer is 7 years old. It's like being 70 years old in human years. So you're kind of on the other side of the fence. 70-year-olds don't get mad at me. But with that being said, the computer doesn't operate as well as it did when it was, a year or two old. So a lot of times, anything over 5 years, I will steer the customer away from getting it fixed, because by the time you end up fixing it and you spend X amount of money, and then 3 to 6 to 9 months to a year down the road, you've got to do some other things because other things start failing. We could have just replaced your computer, moved all your data over, got everything set up the way it was supposed to be. You're going to have a better experience as far as getting on the computer and using it versus what you had that's 7 years old. So I basically I talk people more out of not using my business in some respects, and maybe doing it a little bit differently. Now, will this customer come back to me? Maybe, maybe not. Doesn't matter. I don't want to waste their time or my time and money to be able to, just make a buck at that time. Because I could have gotten it in, I could have replaced the fan, I could have cleaned it up. But in my experience, something that's 7 years old, you can clean it up to a certain point, but it's not anything that's modern feeling that people are using today that just feels good when you're getting on the internet and surfing and all that kind of stuff. Just the normal things that people do. I even find, even with my computer, and maybe this is, because I'm in front of it, so it's my bias, but even to me, sometimes it feels slow, even as fast as it is. So when I get on these other computers with a spinning hard drive and a Core 2 Duo, if you guys don't know what that is, look it up. It's an old CPU. But with that, it's like it's a night and day difference, and I'm like going, oh my gosh, this is taking forever. So, anyways, yeah, I agree with what Ervis said, and Paco, is you got to do the right thing. Second story. So I've been working a lot of hours lately at my regular job, and I got into this routine where the smoke alarms will chirp at me when the batteries get low. And because they're all networked together inside the house electrically, they're nothing fancy. They're just a regular smoke detector.
Okay.
But once the battery goes down in one, there's 7 of them. They start chirping different areas. And sometimes it starts off with this little tiny beep, and it's not a big deal. And then sometimes they'll go into this big, really loud beep. Well, I'd ordered some batteries. I got them in. They were sitting on my desk. I'd been busy. I hadn't changed them. And this is my fault, because normally what I do is whenever we change times, when we spring forward or fall backwards on our 2 time changes every 6 months, what I'll do is I'll change batteries at that time. And I had 0 problems. Well, I let it go past the spring. I don't know why. I'm going to blame COVID, because we're blaming everything on COVID. So why not? So
Are you referring to daylight savings?
Yes, is it daylight savings time now? I don't even know.
Gotcha. Just curious.
Eastern Standard Time, Eastern Daylight Savings Time, whatever. Anyways, so I get home last night at 4:30 in the morning, and the door I walk into, that fire alarm or that smoke alarm right above my head is making an enormously loud beep. And I'm thinking, okay, well, it's that one. I'm gonna go to my bedroom. I got some fans. I'm gonna take a shower, go to bed. While I'm in the bathroom, and I can still hear this thing chirping. I'm like, it's not gonna be good. So in the middle of the night, I go into everybody's room. I'm standing on chairs, almost falling, trying to change these batteries and stuff like that. Finally get everything changed, and then there's 2 that are still chirping. So I have to go up. Well, sometimes you need to reset these things. So I'm Googling on my phone how to reset this stupid smoke detector. I've only done this 100 times. You'd think I would know how to do it. And so it comes down to you unplug it from the wiring, you pull out the battery, you hold the reset button, which is in the middle of the smoke detector generally, and it'll reset it, put your battery back in, plug it back in, and you're off to the races. So I had to do that with 2 of them last night. So it took me a little longer. So moral of the story is don't procrastinate, do things when you're supposed to do them, and you won't run into these problems in the middle of the night, in the dark, crawling through your kids' rooms, trying to change these stupid little 9-volt batteries. All right, that's my story. Yeah. Anyways. All right, let's go ahead and we're going to talk about today. First, I want to get a chance to know Ervis a little bit. And why don't you give us a background story of where you came from, how you got to be where you're at, and how you got to doing business in Shanghai, China.
So long story short, I was born in Albania. I was raised in Italy. And in 2013, I had a chance to come to China for an exchange when I was finishing my master. I liked it so much that somehow I convinced my university to allow me to stay longer. And longer and longer and longer, I started working. I got into technology. I worked for a company selling digital space traffic. The ones that all the pop-ups and all the advertisements that show up on your apps, on your websites, on the phones, the one that everyone loves a lot. So I had a short experience there. But what I learned is that I wanted to stay in technology, but I didn't want to stay in a sector where I cannot see or I cannot directly have the feedback from the customers. And afterwards, I had a chance to start working for an IT company, IT services company. I worked there for 2 years and 10 months, roughly. And then there was no way up for me. And then I decided, I was like, if I want to stay in China and I like technology, and why don't I try? I mean, I'm still young enough. I'm not married, so I don't have so many responsibilities. So I can test entrepreneurship. So I decided to launch my own IT company, and here I am, almost 2 years after running my own IT company. And we do provide managed IT services here in China. We do also smart hand support for foreign IT companies that have customers here in China, basically offices and factories that respond to their HQs. We have a few customers that are only based in China but are owned by foreigners. And we help customers. Typical issues are lack of standards. The other day I went to an office where they had 5 different brands for laptops. That was a good case. I've seen worse. We help customers implement structures in terms of IT infrastructure, in terms of IT setup. Sometimes we do copy what the global IT team asks us to implement here in China, or the global IT team says, find a solution that fits with us, but use local or international solutions that are easily and readily available in China. The 2 words make a difference, easily and readily available. We do help customers with international connectivity, because as you may know, having good connection between China and the rest of the world, or the rest of the world and China, is not always easy. And it can bring some, I would say, headaches. And then lastly, but not, we help customers make sure that all their software is running properly. And we try to make sure Chinese software and global software fit. Easier said than done, but we try to do a good job every time.
That is an excellent story. And yeah, it's so you're dealing with some different things over there that maybe we're not dealing here within the States or Canada or et cetera. I guess North America. Because not only are you overseas, but there is some, obviously there's, even with foreign companies where you're at, there's going to be differences with software and having to combine itself. And we know, Microsoft is a global company and they make stuff for everyone easily. Yeah, no, not so much. But they try. But sometimes it's easier said than done. And the problem is, I think when it comes to PCs or Windows PCs, let's put it that way, because even Apple computers are PCs, they're personal computers. I think with people having these computers and having so many different variations, and like you were talking about, Ervis, of having 5 different types of laptops. Well, that's a support nightmare, because you've got to be able to figure out what, hey, what F key do I push to get the diagnostic to come up on this particular laptop, or to get into the BIOS, or to, whatever the thing I have to do. And they're all a little bit different. There's some generalities. Yeah, F2, F11, F12. We get all that. But at the end of the day, I don't know about you guys, I still got to look that crap up, because I don't remember all that stuff. Now, you would think I would write it down, but here's the problem with that. Take any manufacturer, and as they iterate their software and their BIOSes over the years, they will change a lot of that stuff all the time. And you're like going, why? Whatever you were using, I know that an Acer is going to take an F2 or an F12, whatever. And so it's just, they make it very complicated. So the nice thing is, we have plenty of choice when it comes to computers and components and stuff like that when it comes to the Windows PCs. But at the end of the day, we also have, that's our Achilles heel, because we have to support that and figure out what software is going to work with what hardware. And so this is a thing that we have to deal with all the time. Paco, I see you nodding your head over there, and you're in agreement.
Yeah, absolutely. Standardization. It's going to be your best friend.
Now, Paco, when it comes to standardization, have you, over the years, moved some of your standardization? I mean, and I know some of the software is going to change and stuff like that, but as far as hardware, computers and stuff that you support, has that changed over the years, or have you kind of stuck with one for a long period of time?
So I'm primarily a Lenovo reseller. So I normally stick with Lenovo just because of the IBM brand. It's still manufactured and assembled here in the US for a majority of the pieces. For the ThinkPad series, that's usually the ones that I'll give to my clients. As far as standardization on refurbs, I used to stick with Lenovo. However, it started becoming harder and harder to get Lenovo refurbs. There was a distributor that went out of business, or not went out of business, but basically decided to no longer provide that offering for refurbs for Lenovo. So that had me searching for refurbs for a long time. And then I finally just gave up and just went ahead and decided to do Dell refurbs if I was going to do refurbished for any client. So that's probably in the last year and a half of me doing that. So that standardization was changed to where if a client didn't want a new system, and we needed to find a refurb and many refurbs, then we ended up just going with Dell refurbished at that point. It just became cumbersome and trying to find something that was of many specific deals. My understanding is the distributor that we're using now, Cynix, has a great refurbishing and wholesale department that we just got introduced to. But right now we've kind of standardized on Dell as our refurbished models that we provide to clients off of the Dell refurbished website. So it's just become easier.
It's funny because I started doing Dell refurbished a few years back, and I started doing that mostly because John Dubinski, our good friend over here in Grand Rapids, he basically was using Dell refurbished, and I started using them, and I like the business class, the latitudes and all that kind of stuff that they have, and even on the desktop stuff. So what I've been doing actually with customers is, customers are probably spending about the same amount of money for a refurbished computer as what they would spend if they went to Best Buy, Walmart, etc., to buy a brand new consumer grade computer. But once they get these computers, even though they're spending the same amount of money for a little bit older computer, a couple years old, they're seeing that there is a lot of that they're better built, they're easier to work on. They're not all this. I mean, I was taking consumer laptops apart where I'd have to take the whole computer apart just to get to the hard drive. But I don't have that problem in the Dell laptops. I can pull, I don't know what it is, 10 screws out of the back and pop it off, and there's my hard drive. no big deal.
And to be clear, you mean the business class laptops, because the Dell
Correct.
consumer laptops are.
Yes, we're talking about the latitudes and all that. Yes. So I've been steering people towards refurbished, regardless of, and this is for residential, regardless of them being able to go to the store and buy a consumer grade, because I'm just like, you're going to be much, much happier with this. And plus, if they're my regular customer, then I'm going to be able to support them that much better, even from a residential side, which is not obviously from a business side. You're doing that month to month, and from a residential side, you're doing it, 6 months to a year a lot of times before they come back and see you. Sometimes even longer than that, especially if they have good equipment. And when you sell them good equipment, they seem to do pretty well for an even longer period of time, which is good for them, because I really don't want to see them anyways. Yeah, don't get me wrong, I like the money, but it's at the end of the day, I'd rather have a happy customer that has a peace of mind. And really, when you look at what happens a lot of times nowadays with, and we'll probably get into this a little bit, but with the viruses and malware and stuff like that, there is some sort of maintenance that should be done to even the residential computers to maintain some sort of, I don't know, sameness, I guess, from the day that they bought it to 6 months, year down the road. If it's slowing down and it's not operating the same and it's not operating correctly and they're having issues, well, nobody wants to log into their computer and do that. So that becomes a problem there.
So it's funny you say that, because we're now starting to, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff going on my end, but one of the campaigns that we're running right now, one of the projects we have going on is Synchro provides a good report called the Asset Aging Inventory Report. So that will tell you in your fleet how many of them are like over 4 years old because of the processor that's installed, how many are of what different Windows operating systems and things like that. So what's great about that is you can type in your customer, see what they have, and you can actually download it and send it to them and say, hey, and I did this with a bigger one of our clients that has 70 endpoints. Look, half of your endpoints are over 4 years old. You're trying to transition them over to Mac, which I'm trying to really push them to say, no, don't do that. But, there's a lot of endpoints here. Why don't we discuss on getting you onto a newer system that will be cheaper than a Mac, that we can get 2 at a time. They'll be, so that sort of deal. So if you have a PSA, obviously, or I'm sorry, an RMM that generates those type of reporting, it'd be beneficial for you to kind of look at what your clients have. And I think even, ProTech guy in the chat even said hard cutoff is 5 years. So you have the ability of being able to just plug it in, cut off at 5 years, tell everybody and tell them, look, it's time to upgrade. This is what needs to happen. So, which brings us to John's question that he had was, if someone insists on keeping the whole old hardware, what do you do? Right. I think it's a case by case basis if our clients. I think it's one of those where depending on budget and and the time that we're in right now, if it's a spinning drive, if we can upgrade the memory, maybe we can push it for a year or two more, right? And then kind of getting that type of situation. But especially with refurbs and things of that nature. But if you really get to the point where the client doesn't want to budge and they're really doing themselves a disservice by not following your guidance, because that's really what you should be for them, is helping guide them so they can be efficient and do what they need to do with their business, then that's a conversation and a decision you have to make with yourself, whether do you want to deal with that problem and charge accordingly, or do you want to walk away so you can get other clients that'll make your life a little bit more easier because you've standardized and made things efficient so that they work a certain type of way.
Now, in that particular situation, I'll answer that question too. That's from John Reed. And basically, hey, you know what? I can put that right up in here, right there. All right. So, yes, if they insist. Now, I've done this before. I've done motherboard replacements on laptops where I basically have tried to talk the customer out of actually doing it, because I'm like, listen, you're going to have back then. Shoot, I think it was 30 days on a motherboard, and I was like, 30 days, your warranty's gone. So, and that's a quick period of time. I said, we can get you a new computer and you're at least going to have a year warranty on it. And so, but a lot of times those people are like, I just really like my laptop. Okay. So I go back in and change it. Well, 6 months down the road, what ends up happening is I never get any pushback after that, because I've always been upfront and honest. And that's what Ervis was talking about at the beginning of the show. And I let them know. And so they'll still come back to me 6 months later and go, hey, I got a new computer. Can you help set it up and move my stuff over? And yeah, and I charge them again and we move the stuff over. And it's not that big a deal. So I feel fine at the end of the day, as long as I've forewarned them of what I would do in this particular situation. If they choose to do it their way, I will accommodate them in most cases. Now, there would probably be a breaking point where I might not do that, where I just go, and I don't know how I would handle that. I probably would say to something to the effect of, you know what, I just don't work on computers that old, for whatever reason. And that is just a business model. That's just a way of doing business. And that's a thought process that you have to come up to yourself. So, all right. With that being said, though, let's go ahead and Ervis. So I want to hear from you because obviously you came on the show and you had contacted us and signed up, and you're running a business in Shanghai, China, for foreign companies they're coming to China, obviously, and you've been having fun with it. And so I want to hear maybe what are some of the things, maybe some of the challenges, some of the things that might be a little different as far as doing business over there versus some of us who are doing business here in the States and elsewhere.
Well, the first thing is set of priorities. I remember I did a project a few years ago for a company. They're a financial company, and their IT vendor is based out of New York, I think. What happened is that we were setting up the server, and we had asked them to build like a server room. And I said, yes, we have this extremely super fancy office. And at the time, there were like 4 or 5 people. And that was the most expensive building in Shanghai. But no server room. I was like, you have all this empty space and there's no server room? No, we need to have the kitchen. We need to have like the 2 meeting rooms. We need to have all the flashy space for all our employees, our managers, for our meetings. Okay, fine. I was like, so where do you want us to put the server? And they were like, man, somewhere in the kitchen. And they were like, okay, fine, we'll try to find a place. So we put it, which was in a place which the air conditioner will actually cover a bit. And we also had all the fans to help with the server and with the other network devices. But then the jam happened. And the local business manager asked us to move the server, the rack, to move it because it was hurting the feng shui. I don't know what I don't know if you know what the feng shui is. Basically, it's like the idea that certain things go in certain places, and if you put them in a wrong place, they will block the flow of energy. And the server could be seen from the entrance of the room of the office. So there was the door, there was the small kitchen, and then there was like a small opening, and you could go in, and then you could see the server, and they said, "Oh no, you need to move it." And we wrote an email to the IT manager from Singapore, because the IT company has offices all over the world. We wrote them an email saying, like, your local manager has asked us to do this. Could you please decide who has the authority here? And then we ended up actually moving the server rack because of the feng shui. Even the IT company from the UK, from the US in that case, had to, okay, we will do.
Wow. It's funny, but if you think about it, this is important to some people, right? It having this energy flow in the room or whatever. And feng shui came out, I don't know how many years ago it was. It was quite a while ago, but it's one of these things where I laugh. Okay, my cluttered office. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of feng or shui going on here. So, but sometimes you have to go with what the customer wants, because to them it's an issue. And so, Ervis, I thought you were going to tell me that they wanted it next to the toilet in the bathroom, because I've heard stories like that before. where it's like, really, you're going to put the server? Now, let's be honest. If I had the choice between a kitchen or a bathroom, I would probably pick the bathroom because it's going to be cooler than the kitchen. I'm just thinking. So,
will it though? But you know, and I just hear kitchen and I just think of all the horror stories I hear where like the pipe burst and the entire servers have been drenched and all this other stuff. And it's just, I hear kitchen and server. And I had a client like that at one point. Luckily we got rid of them, but they were one where in our early days where they had it right in the kitchen, like right by the refrigerator, right by next to the restroom on the other side of the wall. And like, you know, the sink is literally maybe 4 feet away from where it was, and you know it was, oh, can you make this tighter and neater, and like you need a rack and you need it high up and like out of the way, and like, oh, well, we don't want to spend that much money, can we just put shelves? And then that was the decision. I said, like, yeah, I think you need to find somebody else because you either got to do it right or I'm not going to get that email at 2 a.m. saying we have a burst pipe. Not going to happen. Just not my idea of fun on a Monday morning to hear something like that, or even in the winter of Chicago here. No, not my. And yeah, no. So didn't have to deal with that. So luckily everyone else either doesn't have a server, or if there is a server room, there's an actual closet where it has to go to. But that's a whole nother story where we need to get some, as Ervis had mentioned, some good cooling into that room because it's at a manufacturing place and they keep the closet door closed. So we'll go with that.
So Ervis, I know in our notes we had talked about some of the things where we were talking about, connectivity issues was one of them. Do you have some stories that relate to basically having those type of issues where you can't connect to the internet, the phones and stuff like that?
Well, the first thing is that right now I'm joining the podcast using a VPN.
Ah, okay.
Very simple. And since I'm connecting from home, I'm just using a consumer base. I'm not going to make their name because it's not necessary, but they do a good job. So for everything that I have to connect outside of China, I would say 90% of the times I have to use a VPN. Fun fact, by the way, you were mentioning before Microsoft. Microsoft in China is not working as Microsoft China. So they work on a JV basis. So what happens is that they are working with a company called 21 Vianet, and which is a publicly listed company in the US, if I'm not wrong. They should be in the US. And they are the local partner here for Microsoft. What happens is that when we sell Office 365, which now is Microsoft 365, when we sell that, we actually ask our customers which version do they want. Do they want the China version, or do they want the global version? And that's a choice which actually has some impact on their business, because the China version doesn't have all the features that the global version has, because Microsoft itself is not giving still all the options that are included in the global part. Fun fact: Microsoft Teams per se is not included in the China offering.
Wow.
Now, is there another client in its place that's being offered, or just no type of communication platform like Teams?
Skype.
Oh, Skype.
Wow. Okay.
So if they want, they can download Teams by themselves, but it's a separate tool, and it's not included in the offering that you can find here in China. So that's why when we are selling Microsoft 365 services to customers, we always ask them, do you want to buy the global version, or do you want to buy the China version? The China version, of course, is much faster because it's hosted in China. You don't need to have any special connectivity. You just need to have a decent, good local connectivity. But if you're having the global version, the first time, usually, you have to go with a VPN. So you have to make sure that everything is working properly. And then only then, if you have a very good professional grade connection solution, then you may have the capability to connect smoothly to your email, to your SharePoint, to your Office 365 or Microsoft 365 software. So that's one thing which actually it's very important for me to mention, because sometimes people they say, oh, we're going to provide everything, we can do everything. And I'm like, hold on, which part are we talking about? So I have to make sure customers are aware of this thing. And we have customers who would decide to go only with the global version, and others who go with the Chinese version. As another fun fact, I have a couple of associates of mine who are working for huge Chinese SOE companies, which stands for state-owned companies, and they use the global version.
Now, as far as the global version versus the Chinese version, so if somebody gets the Chinese version, obviously you said there's less tools and things in there that Microsoft is supporting. And so that's got to make it kind of a nightmare for you to be able to support that. And what are some of the pushback that you get that people think when they have the China version that they have that they're going to have access to something, and they go all of a sudden they figure out that they don't? I mean, you probably got to jump through hoops to be able to get them to, whether it's communication through something like Teams or Skype or whatever it might be. But so what do you do in that situation?
So the easiest thing here is, if it's a user, I would tell them to have a try with the local version, and they will see all the things missing. But this part actually affects mostly IT teams, because the IT teams don't have the same level of control and independence they could have using the global team. The global version, because when they have the global version, they have many more features in terms of control, security, and they can implement services way faster than they would have to do it with the China version. Because as I said before, Microsoft hasn't given all the code to the local vendor, which is their business decision, and none of my business to interfere or ask anything. So when it's the global team of a company asking me, I always ask them to start. I nudge them towards the global version. I'm trying to put it politely.
Well, I guess what would be their reason for not going with the global version?
Wait, the local version is way faster. You don't need special connectivity. You wouldn't have so many issues, especially if you have users who are traveling around China. You have salespeople, or you have account manager or customer service managers that have to travel to their sites. You never know what kind of connectivity you're going to have, and in that case, you may prefer to have a local version. Just to say, I mean, just saying, Shanghai is known for having an amazing, and I'm every day I go around Shanghai, I'm impressed by the connectivity. But Shanghai, every time someone says you live in Shanghai, so you're in an amazing place, I'm like, which part of Shanghai? Because I've been to a customer, another oil and gas company, Spanish one this time. When I went there, my phone had the E. And I was like, why on earth I have Edge? And I had Edge when it was like 2009, 2010 in Italy.
Wow.
Like, why do I have E here? So I was asking the local IT manager, and it's like, yeah, we all are on the company Wi-Fi. Because if you're using one of the 3 vendors that are available in China, if you're having one of that, which I unfortunately happen to have, they're like E. If you have it, sometimes you don't even have connection.
Oh, jeez.
And that's in Shanghai.
Now, is that because it's more of like a location situation where they haven't invested in the infrastructure in that area, or they've just made a conscious decision where it's not needed in that area?
I wish I had the answer. So what my guts tell me is that maybe in that area they didn't do a good job. or they don't have enough customers, or they have not been pushed by others to do a good job there, or they haven't had enough complaints, so they don't care so much there. But I have been to other places where even if I ask, I ask the local people, is it possible to use, because in China you have China Telecom, Unicom, and Mobile, and then I ask, is either of these? Usually I try to avoid mobile. Is either of Telecom and Unicom working? They're like, no.
So that's why.
So sometimes it's fun to help making this happen, but if you just push enough, you can get it done. And just like you need to know who you have to talk, you need to know what you have to do, and what we have done here for customers, we had, and we still do that, do testing for their internet lines, because not all of them come with the same features and the same speed, because what they say, what they bring are two different things. So we have our own favorite for the internet connectivity, and I'm not sure you know, but just to make sure, any business connectivity solution between China and outside of China will be throttled from 95 to 99%.
Oh, ouch. Holy cow. So it's better to use in the country infrastructure versus anything outside then. Okay. Wow.
Unless you're going for an MPLS or SD-WAN, but even them, we have a couple of customers who are using MPLS, and it's not always a solution.
Now, what is MPLS?
So the MPLS basically is you're renting a direct connection point to point between two offices, which can be in the same country. Mostly what we deal is companies that have a connectivity between Shanghai, for example, and Hong Kong, Shanghai, Singapore. Others are Shanghai, Germany, or Shanghai, Australia, or Shanghai, US. So they have a direct connection site to site. What happens is that they buy global vendors, mostly AT&T, Verizon, Deutsche Telekom, Orange, what I worked Vodafone, and so on, or NTT, and then they do the connectivity. But then the last mile will be handled by a China vendor because they are legally approved to make the connection. So the MPLS will build the connectivity between the connection between the China office and the global office. If the global IT team allows the local team in China, they can also give global access to all Facebook, Google, Twitter, and all the others, because here in China they are legally not allowed.
Gotcha. Okay. Oh, wow. That's that's definitely some issues that we don't have to deal with here from that standpoint. So when it comes to things like security, how is it in securing not only workstations, but obviously internet connection, things going in, things going out of offices? Are you having a harder time with it because you're in China, or what are some of the things that you have to deal with?
Phishing is one of the biggest issues. Actually, on LinkedIn, I've been sharing quite a few tips for phishing because I try to implement them with the customers. Users, because usually the managers and the general managers here are like, they try to avoid issues. Before you were mentioning they want to have peace of mind, but the local users, they always think, I'll go on Baidu, which is the similar to Google, and I'll find the solution by myself. And then sometimes, with sometimes being more than 10 times, the whole network just falls down.
Oh.
And we are called to make things happen, and we're like, so what happened? And like one time there was one user who was having issues downloading certain software tools. That's what she said. So we went on site, and then this user, couldn't watch streaming on her phone. And as a result, because she was using the Wi-Fi of the company, that was a new customer, and we had changed their internet connectivity. What happened is that she was basically unhappy because her connectivity was not very good, smooth as before. She was like, I cannot watch this anymore at the office. I was like, I'm sorry, what's the problem? It's like, yeah, but before I could do that. Now with the new Wi-Fi that you have set up, it doesn't work. Change it. And we were like, hold on. Are you referring to the new network setup we have created, the new Wi-Fi? And she's like, yeah, you need to change them because now I cannot access them. I was like, could you please refer to your office manager? And off we left. She was not very pleased, but the customer has been working with us for a while now.
Well,
because the customer finally can have access to their email
right
without issues.
Getting business done the way. So my thought process when you were talking about that was, I'm probably going to come in with a ruler, and I'm going to find the user that's causing the problems, and I would just hold your hands out and just smack them real hard on the top of their knuckles and call it good, because don't do that again. When it comes to phishing emails and stuff like that, it's like, I get it. And we've all been tempted, even those of us that have been in IT for many, many years. We see what seems like a legitimate email come across from PayPal, Amazon, et cetera, and you all of a sudden you go, but we tell people all the time. And I just my mother did this to me the other day. She's like, "When I got this thing from PayPal," I go, "Yeah, it's a scam." And she did the right thing. Now, she did click the link, but she didn't put any information in. I said, "Don't even do that next time." And I've told them time and time again, and a lot of my customers, same thing, go directly to the website. And it's funny because even in today's day and age, most people do not type in the URL to the website. They do not type in google.com. They search for Google. Now, it's a little bit better with the search bar being in the browser now, because a lot of times it will come up a little quicker with Google and stuff like that. But they won't go to amazon.com. They won't type that in. They'll search for Amazon, and they'll find the first 10 links are Amazon related, and a couple of them at the top might not even be the right Amazon. So that could be a link that goes somewhere, and then you're putting in your information. I had another customer too. She got her Amazon account hacked twice. Now, this is the first time I've ever seen this, and I'm just like going, we got to change some things. Now we got to go to dual authentication. We got to use your phone for that. So, and we're going to do it easily. We're going to do it simply because, you can't take somebody that's been doing something for a long period of time. I'm even telling people, to be honest with you, here's the thing. If you want to stay safe online, especially for the older audience, and I'm not talking about this audience here, my older clients, a lot of times what I'll tell them to do is actually take a notebook and write your passwords on the notebook, because it's just easier for them to use. It's easier for them to find, and they can change it if they need to. They can cross something out, change it in there, and it's all said and done. Because to be honest with you, to hook up something like LastPass or some other password manager would be such a pain to try to teach somebody to use. I'm just going to go with some old school stuff, because here's the thing. If somebody's already broken into their house and they get to their passwords anyways, that's the least of their worries at that point, is what I'm thinking. Yeah, I would be more worried about the intruder that just intruded my home. So I'm not really as concerned about that. But a lot of times customers are still keeping their passwords in the browser, and you got to go, hey, we need to clear these out. Stop telling your browser, and whenever I set up a new computer and I go in and I set up the browsers, I uncheck that very first thing when it comes up. Do you want to save this password? No, never. Don't come up again. And so a lot of those little things that you do can help, save your customers, especially the residentials, because they don't know. And even from the business side, they don't know either, but they act like they know. At least my residential customers will tell you they don't know, and they're okay with that. So those are some of the issues that we deal with when it comes to phishing and stuff like that. It's prevalent everywhere, unfortunately. And I think it's just going to keep getting worse. And I don't know that there's enough education to bring to people to get them to the point where they're going to stop clicking on links or stop giving these emails any type of information. I don't know if that'll ever go away. Anyways, my 2 cents there.
No.
Yeah, I don't, again, so we can only do what we can do, and we try to explain this over and over and over again. And I know one of the things that John Dubinsky, I bring him up all the time because some of his sayings crack me up, but he would get irritated at a customer that would basically say, well, I'm not good at computers. I'd be like, see, this is me, the smart aleck. This is what I'd grab a notepad and a pen, and I go, okay, here's a notepad and pen, and I'd start on hooking their computer. Well, if you're not good with computers, that's fine. You don't have to use one. You can go back to, I get you a rock and chisel if you want. We can do that. And a lot of times, it seems mean, but a light bulb goes on, and people all of a sudden go, oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. All right. They're not happy about it, but the reality is a lot of people that drive cars aren't car people, but they know how to put gas in the gas tank. Most of them, they know how to turn the key in the ignition. They know how to step on the gas. They know what the brake is. So these are things that people do every day. It's no different with a computer. You can learn what you want to learn, as little or as much as you choose, or listen to somebody's expertise that's supporting you and let them do it. And then you just go, okay, I'm going to stop making all these waves and stop doing the things that's irritating my IT support. All right. I guess let's take a quick break, and then let's gather any lasting thoughts, anything else that we want to bring up for this show when it comes to, I know one of the things that was in the list was talking about standard operating procedures. And obviously we're talking about, I think in the list, it was the lack of, but we'll get into that in just a minute. Paco, I'll be honest with you. I didn't listen to your last show that you did, so I apologize. Did you mention the new Patreon subscribers that we had?
I did mention the new.
Okay. All right. So I was because I had them in my notes, and I'm like going,
I think there was 2 new signups from after the show as well. Not sure.
Okay. I think we've got them all covered in my list so far. So I appreciate everyone. If you'd like to support this show, let's just say that, go to patreon.com/MSP Unplugged. You can support this show, support what we're doing here, support the great guests we're bringing in to talk to you about IT, to talk to you about different ways to do business, maybe we're a little bit entertaining. I don't know. I think I'm entertaining, but that's just me. Maybe other people don't, and I'm cool with that. But apparently there's people that watch, so apparently they do find us entertaining, or they just put up with me and they like Paco and people like Ervis.
No, we all know you're the talent.
Thanks, man. But anyways, I want to thank all of our Patreon supporters. And what that does get you, if you become a Patreon supporter, it's like $1 a show. We do 4 to 5 shows a month, sometimes even less because of conflicts in time. But if you do that, you can get part of the secret Facebook group and get in a group that is there to help you. I peruse in there all the time, and I swear to you, I go to answer questions, and before I can even answer the question, there's like 2, 3, 4, 5 people that have already answered the question. I don't even have to go in there and answer it because they're already got people are on it. And so I love the ability for people to be able to go into a safe environment, ask the questions that they feel are, it doesn't matter if it's a simple question. Some of us have been doing this short period of time, long period of time, doesn't matter. Everybody starts somewhere. And so we like this group because we keep it safe and we keep it nice. And if you're not nice, we boot you out. And I think we're up to 152, 154, something like that, people in the group. And I don't think we've had to boot anybody yet, have we? Okay.
Not that I'm aware of yet. I mean, there were a few that were cutting it close, but they've behaved since. So
and I think and again, it's not about. We talk about this too a little bit. It's not about it's okay to have an opinion about something. We all have opinions on how we do things or how we think something should be done. And to us, that opinion seems like good concrete information. But there's many, many different variables out there that we have to think of other people's situations. Now, there's some hard and fast rules that we want to be able to help people with, but there's some things that they're gray areas, and it could go one way or the other depending on. We're still going to try to steer people into a situation where they're not getting taken advantage of and all that kind of stuff. But at the same day, it's one of those things where you want to be able to do business the way that you do business. In some ways work better for some people than others, and vice versa. So it's all good. Anyways, go to patreon.com/MSP Unplugged, get signed up, and the instructions are there. All you have to do is get a hold of me, and we'll get you in the group post haste. I always wanted to say that. Post haste. I heard it in a movie or something one time. Anyways, all right, so let's go back to our conversation, and that is, so Ervis, let's talk a little bit about, you say there's a lack of standard operating procedures for IT in China. So what does that mean?
So the first thing is that, as I said before, there's no standards. Everyone buys anything they find useful, or they find the best deal they find on Taobao, JD, or Tmall. These are the counterparts for eBay and Amazon here in China. So the users think they are smarter than the IT people, and they just go and they're like, hey, I found a device that will save us 100, 200, 500 RMB, which is roughly $70, if I'm not wrong with the exchange, compared to the proposal from the IT team. And sometimes if I'm in a good mood, my answer is like, please go ahead. When you have problems, reach out to me. And usually in 1 or 2 weeks, they're like, Ervis, we're having problems. Right? Never thought you will have problems. But hey, just in case. So we go there. We try to work on the device. We show them the problems. And they're like, well, can we get back your proposal? We're like, yeah, okay, here. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I don't know how it's in the US because I've never been to the US, but what happens is that you always find, as I mentioned earlier, you always find someone who thinks that they're smarter than my team or any other IT team for what it matters. And they're like, oh, I checked this on Baidu, or if they have a VPN or they have a company connection that goes throughout of China, I checked on Google or Bing, and then I found this amazing solution that will save all our issues with the IT. I'm like, please go ahead, talk to you later. And then later, yes, Ervis, can you please help us? What's the problem? Can you please tell me more? Sometimes I become too sarcastic when they don't listen because they really. Like my mom used to say, that she sometimes wants to make fun of me. When I was a kid, she would be like, "You're stubborn. I keep knocking on the wall or the door, and they just keep doing it. Please go and smash your head, and when you're done, come back and we can talk." So sometimes I have to behave like a mom to some users. Another common issue is that I was mentioned before Microsoft, but there's also another tiny little issue with Microsoft. Some software from Microsoft has to abide by the rules of the local government. And as we all know, the government software is not always the most updated. Here, it's even less updated. Fun fact, one time I was in the second most fancy street of Shanghai, and one like a huge screen was like in front of a shopping mall. They were still using Microsoft, what was like Millennium.
Oh, I haven't seen that in it. Oh my gosh,
That was my first operating system in 1999, I think. Yep. So when I saw that in 2016 or 17, no, 18, sorry, I was like, what is this thing doing here? Like, why?
So Windows 2000, Windows Me.
Yep. Windows Me. Yep, that's right.
That was, I used it, and I was like, holy wow, that was a headache. So what happens here is that the windows used by the government and by the government agencies have to be used by the accounting team within the company or the outsourced accounting team, and they never work properly together. So what happens is that the software for that device that is synchronizing with the national accounting team has to be out from the domain controller. It cannot be in the company network.
Wow.
So this is a tiny thing, but it's important because then the global IT team sometimes is like, why we have a device that belongs to the company network that is not in the network? So I have to go through the motions and repeat the same point, telling them that the Windows and certain other software used by the local governments are not so much up to date. But in order for the accounting team to provide the fapiao, which are basically the invoices, which in China are extremely important, extremely fundamentally important, you have to have this machine separated that has to have dedicated software in order to be legal and to follow through the requirements from the authorities. And that's not something that global IT teams understand, because they're like, why? And I'm like, my answer is no, I don't know. So
I don't know. We're just following the rules.
Yes, that's how it is. Just it is what it is. We just go with it. Another common issue we find here is that is the language. So my team is bilingual. Sometimes I joke with them and I say that you're trilingual because they speak Chinese. And when Chinese people speak Chinese, they don't understand each other. I mean, literally. I'm learning Chinese, I'm learning Mandarin, but when my colleagues, they're talking to some of the users in Chinese, I am out of the conversation, completely out of the conversation. So I'm like, okay. So having said this, the certain software here, if you don't pay attention where you source it, you will only have the Chinese language, because of course it's cheaper. So if the global team wants to have access to it, they cannot, basically, unless they have a Chinese person from outside. And then I have to discuss with the users here and tell them that we need a certain kind of software that has language capabilities, multiple languages. Whether it's in Italy, it has to be English and Italian, or whether it's in another country, it has to be in different other languages, that has to support your local team here and the global team, wherever you're based. And the thing is, the local users sometimes are like, yeah, but this is 50 RMB cheaper. I'm like, yeah, that's €7. We'll have your IT team angry. So let's spend the 50 RMB more. Another thing is, a lot of users, they buy devices that are not, they cannot fit the network immediately, so we'll have to rebuild. And what happens is that the price they pay for the rebuild is the difference in price between my initial proposal and their genius proposal. Another thing is, like, there's, I was mentioned before the fapiao. When you make a purchase in China online, not all the vendors can give you the fapiao. So if you don't get the fapiao, you cannot legally reimburse.
Wow.
So if you cannot give the fapiao, your customer cannot claim that. So that's one of the tips of the iceberg that tells you how important it is to have a fapiao and to have a special dedicated machine. But the users sometimes go and buy also network devices from their, in Italy we say, I have my cousin who knows IT. Here they go to their friends and they get devices that are, maybe they fit all the requirements, but they don't have the fapiao, or they don't have the warranty, which is the funniest, until you have an issue, of course. And what was like recently a customer had my proposal against the solution that their local person had found, and I somehow managed to convince him to get a proper business solution. What happened is that one of their users, because for this customer we just do smart hand support, when like break fix, when they need us we go and do the support, that's according to their budget. What happened is that one of their users, I don't know why, when, they just unplugged one of the LAN cables, and there were like two ports available, and they plugged back to the wrong port. So this beautiful Wi-Fi just went whoop, and they said, something is wrong. We just see some smoke from it. Can you please help us?
Oh gosh. Yeah, stop touching my equipment. That's what I'd say. Oh my gosh.
So basically, we had to go there. We took the Wi-Fi back because we had purchased it. We had purchased with a warranty. We were able to send it back to the vendor. They replaced it, and the customer spent like $5-7 for the shipping, because in China shipping is ridiculously beautiful and cheap and convenient. One of the things I love the most of China, and they got it back, and we were like, don't touch this port and cable anymore. Don't. I'm going to cut your fingers. I'm going to cut your hands. Just don't do it. Don't.
Oh,
They haven't done it yet.
that's good. So
Not yet.
it sounds like there's a lot of similarities for what you're dealing with, but there's some caveats to that. There's some things that you have to deal with that obviously we don't. And it makes for interesting business. And I'm sure as you're learning the ropes and figuring out how you need to do things, and in the things that you need to do on a daily basis in order to run your business. I think if you were to come to a place like the US, then all the knowledge and information you have would be way above board for what the rest of us probably deal with, and you'd be perfectly fine and fit right in. So I do feel for you a little bit as far as having to jump through some of those hoops, but it's part of doing business, right? It's what you have to do in order to run your business, no matter where you're at. And IT is global, right? And everybody needs IT infrastructure. That's not going away anytime soon. It's going to keep growing, and people are going to need more and more support down the road. So.
Definitely, that's the case. Right now, and I think that's one of the interesting parts to see, is that IT sometimes in China is perceived like a job that anyone can do. And
it's the same way here. Yeah, my brother's cousin's dog, he could set that network up, no problem.
And I'm like, yeah, please go ahead. Just do it. Let me know. I'm waiting here.
Exactly. And then I'm going to charge you a stupid tax when I have to come in and fix it. You're getting double my hourly rate because I'm not coming in here to be, and again, it's one of those things, we've talked about it before, of sometimes you have to find the right clientele for your business. And for some people, Paco was talking about it earlier, some people you just got to let go by the wayside. Hey, you're not going to follow my advice anyways. So this relationship, there is no relationship. It's a one-way relationship. You just want me to do what you're telling me. And I don't want to do it that way because it's not beneficial to you and it's not beneficial to me. So in my opinion, when I'm looking at, it's a lose-lose situation. You're thinking it's a win, but I'm looking at all the things that you're going to have to deal with, and we're just not going to do that. So those are some of the hard choices that you have to make sometimes. I'm sure being in a global market, being in China, is going to be a little bit different because there's things that you have no control over, whether it's through the government or through different software vendors that come in there. There's going to be things that you're going to have to do a little bit differently. So it's
that's definitely the case. There was one company invited me to meet them, and then after a lot of discussion, I asked them a simple question. I was like, "Well, it seems you're having an IT team that is not up to the standards you would like them to serve you. So how long have you been working with them? And they're like, we've been working with them for 4 or 5 years. I was like, so you have had these issues only recently? No, we've always had these issues. And I was like, so pardon me, but I don't get one thing. You've been having them for 4 or 5 years. You've been having the issues for 4 or 5 years, and you invite me in. So how much are you paying them? Just out of curiosity. So we see if we can actually, if I can bid, if there's any option for me, and if it's like a win-win situation. And then they said they're paying for a person to go there 4 times a month, full day, to stay there. And they said they're paying 3,000 RMB, which is $400 per month, roughly. And I was like, wait, that's more or less half of the salary I pay a technician for half a month. So
Wow.
Even
Okay.
if I wanted, like if I really wanted, if you're my best friend forever, my BFFFF, whatever you want me to say, even there, I would struggle with that, because then my technician would be like, because for all the uses they had, the technician would have to go there maybe once a month, and everything would be done by remote. And the technician will sit there idle. And my technicians don't want to sit idle. They want to do something. So they will be like, I'm going to look for a new job, Ervis. But they found someone who's willing to stay there for 4 days a month
Wow.
for
And do
$400.
wow. That's crazy.
And I'm like, I recommend you to stick with your vendor. But if you decide to change and to have a professional IT, talk to you in a few years.
There you go. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, we have gone way over time. It's been an exciting conversation, and it's a lot of great information that we got coming from China and things that you have to deal with. And hopefully, I'm sure that will help other people out there and know, hey, the struggle is real everywhere you're at. But before we get out of here, if Ervis, could you give us, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you and just get in contact with you and talk to you or whatever, what would be the best way to do that?
The best way would be LinkedIn. They can search for me, Ervis Micukaj. They can find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active. If they want to see what our company does, they can go on jetservices.com.cn, because we have to have a Chinese domain, which is .cn, which can only be purchased in China. It cannot be purchased outside of China.
Wow. Okay.
We do managed IT support. We do smart hand support for global teams that have offices and factories in China. We help them with the connectivity solutions. We help them with the software solutions that happen in China. And I'm open to anyone who wants to have a cappuccino in Shanghai, but I assume we'll do a digital one.
For the time being, anyways, yes. But yeah, you never know. There could be some people traveling, I'm sure. Oh, all right. Well, I appreciate you coming out today and sharing with us. It's been great having you on here and just sharing with us the struggle of common IT issues. So, Paco, if people want to find out more about you, where could they go?
They can tune into this fine programming every Sunday at 7:30 Eastern, or they can go ahead and reach us over in the private Facebook group, MSP Unplugged.
Awesome, man. All right, watch live and hang out in the chat room over on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and your favorite podcasting app to never miss an episode. I want to thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on MSP Unplugged.